Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers. My guest today is Doug Drysdale. He's the CEO of Cybin Inc. Doug, welcome.
Thanks for having me, James. Much appreciated.
You bet. Doug, let's start with an overview. What is it that Cybin does?
So we are taking classical psychedelic molecules, many molecules that other folks would have heard about, like MDMA and psilocybin and DMT, and we're turning those classical molecules into useful therapeutics for mental health disorders, such as depression and addiction.
This is a remarkable sort of new sort of emerging category to me because obviously based on the success of the cannabis industry, now there seems to be a whole new openness on the part of regulators to look at things that were formerly Schedule I drugs and consider them in the context of medication. What has happened to drive this change on the regulatory side?
Look, I think it's an acceptance that what we've been doing to date just isn't working. During this pandemic, we've seen a significant increase in depression and addiction, in substance abuse. And when we look back at traditional treatments for these conditions like SSRIs, long-term studies have shown that for moderate depression, they're no better than placebo. So we've been treating for decades the signs and symptoms of these disorders without any real breakthrough. And yet, on the other hand, we've known about these psychedelic molecules for almost 80 years. LSD was discovered 78 years ago. And we have decades of data that shows that they're safe and efficacious in a very different way than we usually treat these conditions. So we used to go into the physician, taking a pill from the pharmacy, taking that every day. These drugs work very differently. In studies out of Johns Hopkins and NYU, patients that are depressed or have certain addictions have been shown to be completely free from their symptoms or their addictions for months at a time from just 1 or 2 doses. So clearly an opportunity to really dramatically change how we treat these disorders and to change people's lives.
Yeah, remarkable. So then tell me, how do you turn this into a business? How do you monetize this?
Well, we've been very fortunate to have the support of many US blue chip biotech investors. We raised almost $90 million to date. We have 50 molecules in our library. This is fully drug development under a complete pharmaceutical regulation, and 4 major programs that are underway. We have a program entering phase 2 clinical studies for major depression. We have a late preclinical program for alcohol use disorder using some novel deuterated tryptamines. I can talk about those. And then some latter programs that will be coming through into the clinic later this year and into early next year.
Okay, so specifically, can you give us some examples of the drugs and the treatments that they are being used for?
Sure. So our lead program, which we're calling CYB001, very creative, is a sublingual film formulation of psilocybin. So this is a synthetic molecule, but originally psilocybin came from magic mushrooms. So we've been able to take that naturally occurring product, synthesize it in a lab, and combine it with technology that delivers a bit like a Listerine breath strip under the tongue and dissolves very quickly. So our hope is that we can get a very fast onset, a short duration of action, maybe still a few hours, and then reduce side effects. And as I mentioned before, what we've seen out of studies from Johns Hopkins using psilocybin in major depression is a 71% response rate. And that's about 4 times the effect sizes we're seeing with current treatments today, with many patients being free of their depression for 5 or 6 months at a time.
Wow. You know, it's funny. I did a lot of experimenting with psilocybin in my younger days on a self-administered non-clinical basis. And I can say with certain empirical knowledge that I can say I've experienced firsthand the antidepressive effects of psilocybin. Yeah. And I'm curious as to what needs to happen to make it more of a functional therapeutic substance. I mean, I guess making it synthetic is one thing, but I guess there's an intensity that has to be brought down to something that's more useful. Is that correct?
Well, it's true that there's lots of anecdotal benefits from people that have taken these substances personally, and that's great. What we're trying to do here is develop a more controlled environment and a more controlled dosing. What's really important, it seems, with these treatments is the associated psychotherapy that goes alongside the drug. So it's a combination of both the molecule and the therapy. There's a recent study looking at MDMA in PTSD, and about a third of patients were in remission from their PTSD with just psychotherapy, but 2/3 with psychotherapy and MDMA together. So appears to be a synergistic effect between the two when given appropriately, and a doubling the effect size in that particular study.
Okay. So tell me, how long until, is Cybin a profitable entity at this point? Let's start there.
No, we don't have revenues today. We are in drug development, so we're a drug development company, and we expect to see our first treatment on the market around 2024, 2025. So we're a few years away from market. Drug development, is a fairly long process. But what's great about these molecules, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that we know an awful lot about them. So we're not starting from scratch. This isn't a binary biotech play. We're taking well-known, well-characterized molecules where we know the safety, we know the efficacy, and we're simply tweaking them using chemistry and drug delivery to turn them into useful therapeutics just a few years away from now, which in drug development terms is quite short.
Sure. So does Cybin envision setting up physical locations, clinics, to treat patients directly, or are you more looking at providing the drugs as a product to clinicians?
That's a good question. And at the very heart of our drug discovery is a goal of making these treatments as scalable as possible. Some of the treatments that are in development today are 4 or 6 hours in duration. And we're using some novel chemistry to shorten that duration down to maybe 1 to 2 hours. And our view is that a 1 to 2 hour treatment could be very easily supported by current infrastructure today, current clinics. There are depression clinics, there are IV infusion centers, there are clinics that perform all kinds of services for patients in a 1 hour session versus a 6 hour session. So our goal isn't to go and spend our investors' money on bricks and mortar, on real estate, but to partner with chains of clinics that already exist that could then deliver the psychotherapy services around our molecules.
Excellent. Doug, where exactly in the world are you planning to sort of develop? Is this all just a US-based operation, or are you going to be sort of global in footprint?
Yes, we're expanding quickly. So we have a science team in the Boston area that we have a lab there. We're doing some preclinical work and some development work in Canada. We're doing some chemical synthesis and preclinical work in the UK. So already this is happening on a multinational level, and we have to work that way in order to align our development work with regulators in both Europe and the US.
You bet. All right, Doug, that's a great introduction to the company. We're going to leave it there for now. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thanks for your time today.
That's great. Thanks for having me, James. Much appreciated.